There is a certain pride in being the strong one. Not the loud kind of pride. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up as reliability, self-control, and independence. The kind where you tell yourself you do not need much, because you have learned how to handle everything on your own without anyone's worries. You learn to push through, to adapt quickly. You solve problems before they grow too big. You learn how to stay composed when things fall apart. And over time, people begin to notice. They describe you as capable, grounded, someone who does not panic under pressure, someone who can be trusted. They say things like, "You're so strong. You always know what to do. I don't worry about you. You'll be fine." And in many ways, that is true. At first, that recognition feels reassuring. It feels like proof that all the effort you have put into holding yourself together has meant something. It feels like safety. But slowly, quietly, something else starts to happen. Because over time, the stronger you appear, the less space there seems to be for your own struggles. The more independent you seem, the fewer hands reach out to help. Not because people are unkind. Not because they do not care. But because they assume you will manage and do not need much support, or any at all. And this is how independence begins to change shape, almost without you noticing. It stops being freedom, and more like isolation. Today, we are talking about a role many people carry without ever naming it. Being the strong one, and the loneliness that often follows. Being strong is not the problem. Strength itself is not harmful. In fact, strength is often what helps you survive difficult periods in your life. The problems begin when strength turns into expectation. When it stops being something you choose, and becomes something others rely on. People look at you and think, they can handle it. So they do not step in. They do not offer help. And every time you stay quiet instead of asking for support, you reinforce the image that you are unshakable. Until eventually, the weight becomes yours alone. Imagine someone who has always been the dependable one. At work, they are the person everyone turns to when something goes wrong. When a deadline is tight or a project starts to fall apart, all eyes turn to them. Not because they asked for responsibility, but because they have proven they can carry it. They stay calm under pressure. They fix mistakes quietly. They take on extra tasks without complaint. People trust them. But no one really checks whether they are overwhelmed. In their family, they are the responsible ones. They are the one who makes decisions. The one who thinks ahead. The one who mediates conflict. The one who steps in when things feel unstable. They are described as mature, and naturally become the role their family relied on. And that reliance becomes part of who they are. With friends, they listen more than they speak. They give thoughtful advice. They remember important details. They are the steady presence when someone is struggling. They are the emotional anchor in many relationships. But no one ever really asks how they are doing. And even when someone does ask, the answer is almost always the same. I'm fine. I'm okay. It's nothing. Not because they are lying, but because they do not want to burden anyone. Not because they do not have worries, but because they do not believe their worries deserve space. They tell themselves that this is just who they are, someone who does not fall apart easily. Someone who can manage their emotions. Someone who does not need to lean on others. But over time, something subtle changes. People stop checking in altogether. They get used to this person's strength. They assume this person does not struggle like everyone else. They stop offering help before you ask. They stop noticing when you are tired, overwhelmed, or quietly struggling. Not out of cruelty, but out of assumption. They assume that if something were wrong, you would say something. They assume that silence means stability. They assume that strength means absence of pain. And every time you do not speak up, every time you carry it alone, that assumption becomes stronger. Until one day, you realize something uncomfortable. Everyone else seems to have someone to lean on. But you do not. They talk about sharing burdens, about support systems, about being seen. And you feel slightly outside of that world. Like you are observing the connection rather than participating in it. They are not isolated in the obvious way. They are surrounded by people. They have conversations, responsibilities, and relationships. But there is a quiet sense of separation. They start to feel different. Not superior. Not resentful. Just apart. As if everyone else belongs to a circle where help is exchanged naturally, where vulnerability is allowed. And they are standing just outside it, holding everything together. Alone. As months pass, maybe years, something begins to build inside them. Not anger. Not bitterness. But a quiet heaviness. A heavy loneliness. The kind that comes from being relied on but not leaned into. From being needed but not truly known. From carrying too much for too long. When you are always the strong one, people think you are unbreakable. They think you can absorb pressure endlessly. But the truth is simple. You are human. And humans do not stop needing care just because they are capable. When struggles stay unspoken, fear, sadness, self-doubt, and moments of exhaustion to yourself, they do not disappear. They do not resolve themselves quietly in the background. They accumulate. They settle deep inside, layer by layer. And eventually, that internal weight begins to affect how you move through the world. You start to feel emotionally distant, even in conversations. People talk to you, but not with you. They share things, but do not ask what you are carrying. You listen. You respond. You support. But you do not feel met. You are present in their lives. But they are not fully present in yours. Your inner world becomes something you manage privately, almost professionally. And strength, once a source of pride, starts to feel restrictive. Like a role you cannot step out of. Like a version of yourself people depend on, but do not really understand. At some point, the pressure reaches a point where it can no longer be contained. Sometimes it shows up as burnout. Waking up exhausted before the day even begins. Losing motivation for things that used to matter. Sometimes it appears as emotional numbness. Laughing when you are supposed to laugh. Responding when you are expected to respond. But feeling strangely detached inside. And sometimes, it arrives as a realization that is hard to ignore. I don't feel connected to anyone. I don't feel supported. I don't know who I would go to if I really needed help. That moment can feel unsettling. Because if you admit you are struggling, you risk changing how people see you. It feels like risking the identity you have built your life around. But here is the truth that often gets overlooked. Acknowledging struggle does not erase strength. It reveals a different kind of it. The strength to be honest. The strength to be seen. Because hiding everything has a cost. And that cost is often your emotional health. People who become the strong one did not consciously choose it. More often, they learn it. Maybe early in life, they discovered that asking for help did not work. Maybe support was inconsistent, unavailable, or came with conditions. Maybe they learned that being responsible earned approval. Maybe they learned that emotions complicated things, so they learned how to manage them quietly. They built a shield out of competence, self-sufficiency, and emotional control. And that shield protected them. It helped them survive. It helped them function. But it also kept people out. And gradually, independence becomes part of identity. You start telling yourself things like, I don't want to bother anyone. I can handle this on my own. Others wouldn't really understand anyway. On the surface, these sound reasonable, responsible, even admirable. But underneath them is a quieter message. I don't believe anyone will show up for me. That belief does not mean you think people are bad. It means you have learned not to rely. And that is the wound beneath the strength. When people sense that you do not expect support, they often mirror it. They step back. They assume you prefer space. They do not want to intrude. Slowly, people begin to see you as different. Not unkind, just distant. Not unapproachable, just self-contained. They may feel unsure how to connect with you. They may assume you do not need emotional closeness. They may hesitate to open up, or to ask you to open up. And that makes fitting in harder. Not because you lack warmth, but because your strength has unintentionally built walls. Inside those walls, your softer parts stay hidden. Your doubts. Your fears. Your exhaustion. You keep going. You keep functioning. But those unexpressed parts do not disappear. They collect quietly. Until one day they spill over, as stress, anxiety, or depression. Not suddenly. Gradually. From being unseen for too long. Being strong is not the problem. You do not need to become weaker. You do not need to give up your independence. You do not need to depend on others for everything. What is needed is balance. Strength and vulnerability are not opposites. They are partners. You can be capable and still need support. You can be dependable and still have moments where you do not know what to do. You can be reliable without carrying everything alone. Letting others see your uncertainty does not make you fragile. It makes you real. And real connection requires risk. It requires letting someone see you when you are not holding everything together. You deserve relationships where support flows both ways. That does not mean oversharing. It does not mean losing boundaries. It means allowing yourself to be real. It means letting people know when something is heavy. It means trusting that your needs matter too. Because being the strong one should never mean being invisible. You can still be someone people rely on. But you also deserve people who notice when you are quiet. Who asks again when you say you are fine. Who are willing to hold you, not just lean on you. If this reflection resonates with you, you are not alone. Many people live quietly inside this pattern without realizing it has a name. And if you see yourself here, know this. You are allowed to need care without proving that you deserve it. You are allowed to ask for help without justifying it. You are allowed to be seen as more than the strong one. Connection does not require you to fall apart completely. It just asks that you stop carrying everything alone. Even the strongest people deserve to feel supported, understood, and connected. You are welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for spending this time here. See you in the next video.